Hello, and thanks for joining me on this edition of Let's Talk About It, where my guest today is Nona and Nettie. Nettie is the mother of a young man, Wilbert, who was just recently murdered, actually on September the 5th. The topic of this show today is being our brother's keeper. Nettie and Nona, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. I know that you all have had a horrible experience, horrific experience in the last 10 days.
Yes.
With your son Wilbert being murdered.
Yes.
I want you to tell me and tell the audience a little bit about what took place that day.
Okay, he came up to me and told me that he was going to the park to play ball. And he always do. Every day he comes up to me and said, "Mom, I'll be back. I'm going to play ball."
Right.
He came up to me and he said, "I'm going to play ball and I'll be back in a little while." And I said, "Okay." He turned around and said, "Mama, what we going to have for dinner?"
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "I'm going to Jimmy Chan, want to pick up something to eat." And he said, "Good, I'll be back."
Mm-hmm.
So he went on to the park, and about 7:30 I went to Jimmy Chan to pick us up something to eat. And when I got there, my daughter called me. The phone rang. My daughter called me. She was upset. She was frantic. And she was just screaming, and I was trying to get her to calm down. And she kept telling me that Wilbur got shot. I jumped in my car, and I made it to the neighborhood. I drove around the neighborhood looking for him. She couldn't tell me where she was. I had to find it for myself. But when I got to the neighborhood, I drove around. I seen police cars everywhere. And then I finally got to Airline, and I seen it where they had it taped off. So I pulled up in there and I started talking to the police. I got out the car and I asked them where my son was. And he said, "Who are you?" And I said, "I'm Wilbert's mother. Where is he?" He said, "He's at the emergency room." So I got in my car and I drove to the hospital. When I got there, they had him in the emergency room, and I ran to the emergency room where he was, and they wouldn't let me in. I kept asking them to let me see my son.
Right.
And they said, "Ma'am, you can't see him right now because we're trying to get him stabilized." And they kept telling me that.
Right. Got you.
And they went, and they took me to the waiting room, and I stood in there for a while, and I started getting frustrated, and I came out of there, and I went back to his room, and they said, "Well, ma'am, you can't stay down here." Mm-hmm. So I turned around, went back to the waiting room. We were just pacing the floor. And about 12 o'clock, they came in and told me he didn't make it.
Right. Right. Okay. This type of crime is so senseless, and it's terrible that it's happening to our kids in our community. It's something that we have to stop.
Yes.
And I don't like just talking about something without having some type of solution or ideas on how these types of things can come to an end so that it doesn't continue to happen. And so that's why I wanted you guys on this show, on this day, to talk about that and for us to have discussions about possible solutions. It seems to me that the kids today take life so lightly.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And from what I understand, this incident took place over a basketball game?
Yes, a basketball game.
Over a basketball game. People, we have to stop this. We have to stop this. I wanted to ask you, I know, and another sad thing, Wilbert has a young boy.
Yes, Jaden.
He has a young boy named Jaden.
Mm-hmm.
Now, tell me a little bit about his relationship with Jaden.
He's a great father. Great. Anything Jaden wanted, anything that needed to be done for Jaden, he done it. He spent all of his time with Jaden. Mm-hmm. Every minute. He loved his son.
Yes. Yes.
He loved his son, and his son loved him.
Yes, he did. I wanted to ask you, what were some of the fun memories that you had of of your nephew?
Well, Wilbert, we sort of helped raise Wilbert,
Okay.
when he was a baby, and I had the blessed opportunity to take care of him when he was just a little toddler. Mm-hmm. Growing up, and so my sister and I together, and so it was just a sweet kid. Wilbert's not a bad person. He's very loving, funny, friendly, and it's just for someone to to do this, to not think about the people they're hurting. It's got to stop. He didn't deserve it. Other kids that are put in these positions like this don't deserve it. It's
Right.
just got to stop, and we really, really need to find a way to get a hold and get a message out to the young people to stop. It's got to stop.
Absolutely.
It's got to stop.
I totally
But
agree.
he's a wonderful boy.
Yeah. You know, it's a tremendous blessing, though, in the midst of everything that has taken place. What took place at Will's service this past Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to say that service was like none other that I'd ever seen. The number of people that gave their life to Christ
Right.
when that was brought up.
Right.
And as I watched that line form, my heart was just touched. I was moved by seeing that.
Yes.
And it was a moment for me when I knew that God had ordained
Yes.
this moment in time. And I also recognized how pleased you were as a mother to see that the passing of your son's
Yes.
life was not in vain.
Right, it wasn't.
Right.
But that was a purpose
That was a purpose
to his life.
Yes.
And because of his passing, his passing has positioned other people
That's right.
to have a new life
Right.
through Christ. And I thought that was a beautiful moment. And I watched you as you approached different people in that line.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, God, you have given that mother the strength to do that at this time,
Yes.
at this appointed
Yes.
time.
Yes.
His mother, because on an average, if you just think about it, you couldn't imagine yourself
No.
having that type of strength.
My God.
You're going to make me shout right now. You're going to make me
That's
shout right
true.
now. And it's a beautiful thing when we go back to my brother's keeper.
Yes.
As I witnessed your sister,
Mm-hmm.
the way that she was watching over you and watching you and paying attention to things that were going on with you,
Yes.
being a protector of her sister and looking out for her sister. This is something that I witnessed that you don't have any idea. I sit up and watched. But I thought it was a beautiful moment.
She's been very close to me, my sister. I love my sister with
I
all
love
my
my
heart.
sister.
Yes.
And we call each other every morning.
Is that right?
And Wilbur used to call me every morning when I leave to go to work. If I wasn't there, he would call me on my route. Mama, where you at? I said, I'm on my way to work. He say, I missed you. I said, okay, I'll see you when I get home. But he would not miss a day calling me on my way to work.
Is that
every
right?
morning. And he would come in there and he would kiss me. And he'd say, Mama, you have a good day.
Mm-hmm.
Every morning. But I didn't realize my son was so well known.
Mm-hmm.
He touched many lives, many lives.
Yes, he
And
did.
he loved people. He was a loving person. You would not find one person that would say anything against Will. And a lot of people say, well, Mom, it was the way you brought him up. I kept him, in the Word, teaching
Okay.
him what to do about himself when he got in situations. I would tell him every day that wherever he go, he needs to take God with him. Just take
Yeah.
him with everywhere you go. And, in situations, circumstances, he would get frustrated. And I say, son, go pray.
Mm-hmm.
Go pray. Prayer changes things.
Yeah.
I would stay in his ear. I would get up on Sunday morning and watch T.D. Jakes, and he'd be standing behind me. He'd say, oh, Mama got T.D. Jakes on again. But he would actually sit behind me and listen to the message that T.D. Jakes was teaching me.
Wow.
And he'd say, Mama, that word was for me.
Mm.
That word was for me.
Yeah.
I remember the time he got up when he went to church one Sunday morning. I say, son, where you going? He said, I'm going to church, Mama. He said, I'm going to give my heart to God.
Yeah.
I remember that day. I stood in the middle of the street and I shouted.
Yeah.
Wow.
I shouted, and I did not mind no one looking at me when I was shouting.
Absolutely.
And that following Sunday, he got up. I said, where you going? I'm always talking to him.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I'm going to go to church, Mama. I'm going to get baptized. I said, praise Jesus.
Wow.
And then my daughter, she followed him that next week.
Yeah.
Really?
She gave her life to Christ and she got baptized in Reverend Pastor Williams' church.
Wow.
That's right.
And sometimes it just takes one person.
Yeah.
One person
But
to get the ball rolling.
He was always setting examples for everybody around him.
Mm-hmm.
And I really believe that God used him. I
Oh,
really
yeah.
believe he did. See, Satan had a plan too.
Mhm.
But God overrode
Rolled that plan.
his plan.
Sure did.
And that was evident on Saturday.
That's
evident.
right. It was evident.
Wow.
That's right.
We're going to continue this dialogue. I'm having a great time talking to you guys as you express your love for Wilbert. We're going to be back in just a moment with more Let's Talk About It, so you don't want to go anywhere. Hello, and thanks for joining me on this edition of Let's Talk About It, where we're talking about Wilbert Muhammad Lee Jr., who was just recently senselessly murdered on September the 5th. Here with me today is his father and his brother. I want to thank you guys, first of all, for coming out.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely, and being a part of this show. I wanted to ask you guys, how did Wilbert affect your lives in his 27 years of being here? And I'll start with you, Dad.
For me, my son was the most wonderful person that a father could even ask for. He was a magnificent son. He wasn't a follower. He was a leader. I thought a father was supposed to lead his son, but wound up my son would lead me.
Is that right?
That's right.
Wow.
And he was a beautiful child. And I remember when he was a little boy, he used to sit there and we'll watch basketball games together, you know. And I took him out and I bought him a little ball, and we'll sit there and he'll say, every time I say, "Sick call," he'll say, "It's called, Papa, it's called." I said, "Oh man," I said, "No man, don't say that down." He said, because he couldn't say sick call.
Right.
You know, and he'll just run around and play. But he was always joyful, always very bright,
Mm-hmm.
you know, very honest.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't do anything that, well, he didn't do nothing to upset me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, or his mother as far as that goes sometimes, you know. But he was a beautiful child, and I loved him very much, and he was a leader.
Yeah.
He was very much a leader. You know, he led not only within his death, but within him living, he led peoples in the right direction.
Right. And Big Brother,
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask you the same thing, man. How did your younger brother Wilbert affect your life?
Well, Will, of course, he was an awesome brother. He kept me on my toes. All of my brothers and sisters did, you know, because I had to play multiple roles in their life. I had to grow up fast. God had a plan early.
Okay.
I had no idea, but yeah, I was a big brother and a father to him, and so I had to kind of shadow things. You know, I could joke and laugh, but limited, because I didn't want things to get too far to where they didn't listen to me.
Maintain that respect for you.
That's right. So I had to create an image that they respect at all times. When they see Big Brother, you know, no matter what's going on, everything is straight and narrow.
Mm-hmm.
So I gained their respect, and they kept me on my toes to keep that clean image, you know, because I had to. I mean, I was Big Brother.
Right.
But me and Will had a great relationship. He always came to me. We talked about everything. And one of the things I was glad I was able to talk to some of his peers
Right.
at the service to let them know that, you know, Will did know who God was.
Mm-hmm.
And we had the opportunity to sit down and for him to ask me questions about, you know, religion and God and relationships.
Right.
And it was a great thing to be able for him to come to me.
Yes.
And ask me versus me come to him and sit him down, you know, versus the birds and the bees.
Yeah.
You know, so we had that conversation several times, and he always came to me and asked me things of the nature of, about God versus somebody else telling him. He had other people to come and talk to him about it, but he wanted what his brother would say.
Absolutely.
So it was a good thing that God blessed me to be able to be that person, and for him to bless me with the right words to give him to go in the right direction. So it was amazing to have a brother like that. He was very special. He had a great big heart, and he loved hard, and you could tell from all his friends that was there, all the peers, So I think it was very important for them to know that Will, because everybody has a background of being themselves.
Right. Whatever that is.
Whatever that is.
Right.
And in the midst of that, we have to have God. He created us, so we have to have, something that helps us give us direction.
Right.
To help us give us a sense of thought. So let them know that Will did have a relationship. They accepted God as personal Savior.
Right.
I think that was very important, because everybody walks around with this mentality of having a certain swag, like that's important. And little do they know that has nothing to do
In
with
the
it.
big scheme of things, it means absolutely nothing.
Right, nothing at all.
Yeah.
Nothing at all. With the pants sagging and having the hair done and the sharp look, that's nothing. That's senseless compared to having, everlasting life.
Absolutely.
And I believe that was like one of the key things that they really needed to know, because we're facing one another in this lifetime, and you very seldom get somebody to stand up for what's right.
Right.
And tell the truth.
Absolutely. And that's important, and that leads me to this point with being a role model. And you obviously was a role model for your brother Wilbert, and we need more people, period, to stand up and be role models and be accountable to our brothers and to our sisters. So I consider it a great blessing that you were able to play that part in Will's life, for sure. And we need more of that. And I think if we have more of that, that could be a solution to some of the things that are happening in our society, with young men being killed, senselessly murdered over some of the simplest things in life, like a basketball game. I mean, come on, folks. It just doesn't make any sense. But it's good that he had you in his life to be that, and I hope that you'll continue to be that person for other young men that are coming up.
This have strengthened me. I mean, it's a very emotional time, but it's also a challenge. It's another challenge in life.
Yes.
That I'm here to accept. I understand God's work. I mean, everything that we're going through, God has a reason for everything.
Absolutely.
And it's touched me in a way to step up.
Yeah.
Be that person I need to be, not just for my brothers and sisters, but it's surrounding. There's a lot of people that's looking for that reason of why and that question to be answered.
Yeah.
And it takes us to be that person, that bigger person, to answer those questions.
Absolutely.
And not being scared. Hey, I was once you. I know about the streets.
Yeah.
I lived the struggle. I'm still a part of that struggle. This is how I came out of that struggle.
Right.
And we need more of that. So
absolutely.
I'm here to be that mark of representation of that. So I'm here to stand up and stand tall.
And I think that's great. And that's what's needed in community, not just within the perspective of a family, but in the community at large. Because when you're able to stand up for what's right, you stand out for what's right. And then it's going to help those people to follow. And we need somebody to lead us sometimes. And if that person is you and this is your appointed time to do the leading, then I know that you're going to stand up to that.
Oh, most definitely.
And we need more people like that. And another thing that I want to talk about too, when people talk about Wilbert, my experience with hearing my cousin talk about Wilbert and other people, was the dad that he was to his son.
Oh yeah, he was a terrific dad. Wilbert always, and he had me playing that role as well. Things that he wanted to do with his son, if he wasn't able, I was there to be that fiddle right there to help pick it up, wherever it is. I mean, we go and take them to different places, Chuck E. Cheese's, Monkey Joe's, Splash Town, things that give kids memories. They need the memory. They need the relationship.
Absolutely.
So with us being able to collaborate together, it was a success.
Yeah.
So, I mean, daddy. I mean, he loved his daddy. His daddy loved him. So it was terrific. So,
and that's something that I've heard like a million times.
Yeah.
About Wilbert's relationship with his son. And unfortunately, that's not the story for a lot of African American kids, where the father is actually present in their lives, and not only present but active in their lives, to where they can actually influence their children
Mhm.
to go out into the world to make the world a better place. And so the fact that Wilbert was that kind of dad, and that's what's been instilled into his young child, I think it's a beautiful thing.
Oh, most definitely.
You know,
I agree.
and that in itself shows me that Wilbert was a role model
Mhm.
for what fathers should be and for what fathers could be in the African American community. Because oftentimes we get a bad rap.
Yeah.
But what I want to say is that because of Will, he helps us to have a better rep as it, you know, when we talk about fathers and sons and being present in the lives of your kids, because
Oh,
so
yeah.
often it's just the mom. You know, mama raising the kids, daddy's nowhere to be found,
Yeah.
this, that, and the other. But that was not his story.
Right. Right. I would say it was something that I'm proud and glad I was able to witness it. Also, with being connected with the pastor to help have the
Right.
services to emphasize, you know, accepting the responsibility behind your title. And
Yes.
that's huge. You know,
Mhm.
don't be called a dad and you're not being a father. Don't
There
be
you
a
go.
mom and not being a mother. You know, a brother. You know, friend. You have to complete these roles out.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I was able to understand. God blessed me with that knowledge to understand that we all have multiple roles to play in life. You know,
Right.
I'm a brother. I'm a nephew.
Hmm.
I'm an uncle. I have all these different roles to play out, and we all do.
Absolutely.
And it's very important to play those roles out, understand what they
Mhm.
mean to one another. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know, another thing I wanted to say, because of this senseless crime that has taken place, a mother has lost her son. A brother has lost his brother. A son has lost his father. Nieces have lost their uncle. Girlfriends and lost boyfriends. It's a lose-lose situation for everybody involved. And people, we got to stop the madness and the senseless crime that's happening in our communities. I hope when you guys hear that this message resonates in your spirit and that it causes you to go out into your community and make a difference and become a role model or someone that can make a difference in the lives of others, as Wilbert was obviously doing, and as you has done in Wilbert's life,
Yes.
and so on and so forth. So I think that's a beautiful thing, man. And I just commend you for being the big brother that you have been, for being the stand-up, step-up brother that I saw on Saturday. I commend you for being the father that I witnessed on Saturday at that service, speaking. I thought it was a beautiful thing. It was just really something to behold, and just seeing that experience was awesome. And we're going to come back with more of Let's Talk About It in just a moment. And when we come back, we're going to have the bishop that actually officiated the service for this past Saturday, and we're going to talk about crime in the community. So you guys stick around. You don't want to miss the rest of the show. Thanks so much. Hello and welcome back to this edition of Let's Talk About It. As I told you in my last segment, I was going to have Bishop James Dixon present to talk about the senseless crime that has taken place with Wilbert, as well as his mom back, Nettie. Thank you guys both for coming back to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, when we talk about situations and circumstances that happen in our communities, we don't just want to talk about it, but we want to take an active role in having some type of solution to bringing it to an end.
Yes.
And that's why I wanted you on the show today, because I know I've just recently found out about your group that you have. Tell us more about solutions that can take place behind these senseless crimes to help prevent them.
Well, I tell you, everywhere you go, people talk about what's wrong. And every community, every neighborhood, every city across America, people are talking about what's wrong.
Right.
And the sad reality is that there is a huge chunk of our society that's been written off as a loss.
Mm-hmm.
The government is written off as a loss. The education system is written off as a loss.
Right.
Sad to say, churches have written a great portion of our community off as a loss. No one's coming to reach them. No one's talking to them. Everyone's decided it's just a loss.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been concluded that the only thing we can do with that segment of the society is imprison them, and they become valuable in the incarceration system,
Right.
or bury them. That's the sad reality. I think that those of us who really care, like for people like Miss Nettie and her family, because I've buried scores of young African American men and boys who were killed over nothing.
Yeah.
A basketball game, tennis shoes,
Senseless.
they're senseless. So we've got a value system issue. We see each other as objects, and there's such a hatred against each other, and it takes you back to Cain and Abel, when Cain killed his brother.
Right.
And the question that Cain asked God when God called him on the carpet, am I my brother's keeper? And that question gets answered in the New Testament, yes, you are. We are our brother's keeper. That's our number one assignment. But I first have to see you as my brother. I have to see Miss Nettie as my sister. When I watch the news and I see a mother who's lost her son,
Yeah.
I see a father who's lost a son like Wilbur's dad, I have to see that's my brother who's lost his son.
That's right.
When I see the ambulance roll away, when I see the hearse go down the street,
That's my brother.
That's my brother. That's my sister.
Mhm.
And that's the value that's missing in the fabric of our society. We have raised in America a generation of violent people. They were raised on violent music, violent videos,
Yes,
and
right.
movies and violent games. And so it's just as easy to commit an act of violence against another human being as it is to shoot that person, that image on the video screen.
Right.
And, and so we've got to reverse that
Yes.
with a positive God message. That is your brother. We have two parents, Adam and Eve.
Yes.
Two parents. All of us
Right.
come from Adam and Eve.
Right.
Whether you're black, white, Asian, Hispanic, it doesn't. All of us come from two parents. And so every person on the planet is my sister or my brother. If I see you that way, then I'll treat you like Mayor
That's
treated
right.
Wilbur,
That's right.
his brother.
That's right.
When Miss Nettie is hurting, I'm hurting.
Right.
That's my sister. So it's that core value that we've got to spread through the message and through the models that we have, and that's really what Be Your Brother's Keeper, Not Your Brother's Killer campaign and movement is all about.
Yes. And I think that's a great campaign to have, because we have to have something solidified in society to make that type of difference and to make that type of impact. And you have to go out into the community where these things
Yes.
are happening. You can't just sit back in front of a television camera and make these types of statements without going out into the community to make a difference. That's where change takes place.
Well, you know, the Jesus model is he came to us to help us. He came down
Right.
to where we are
Come on.
in order to give us what he had to offer to change our lives and make us better. I think that so many of us stay in our offices, in our ivory towers, in our churches. And that's another story for me. I think that we're suffering with a church issue. I write in my book entitled "If God is So Good, Why Are Blacks Doing So Bad?" My chapter about the church is that churches have become cruise ships rather than battleships. And cruise ships stay away from trouble, crisis, and turbulent water. Battleships look for where the problems are.
Come on now.
Cruise ships only enrich the people who own the boat. Battleships empower people who are not even on board. And so there's a complete philosophical difference. Cruise ships entertain, battleships empower.
Yes.
We've got to get back to a battleship mentality.
Yeah.
And that's what we do. I mean, we go to the streets. I live in the suburbs, but that ain't where I'm from. And so many of us have forgotten where we're from.
Yeah.
I've spent 90% of my time where I'm from, knocking on doors. We do a piece called Power to the Streets that we're looking to do, again, back with Miss Nettie's family. We were just in Independent Heights with a march against violence this past July.
Okay.
Marched right down the same street because that's what we do. We knock on doors. We have the music and the sound truck. We call brothers and sisters to the truck, and we talk like this. You're not courageous because you can use a gun. You're courageous if you can't, if you don't.
There
You're
you
not
go.
courageous if you can hurt somebody. You're courageous if you can heal somebody. You're not strong because you can knock somebody down. You're strong if you can pick somebody up. You know, it's getting the message to where people can hear it and make it relevant. Because if church only works inside, then it's fake, it's phony,
That's
it's
right.
false, and it's
There you
artificial.
go.
Yeah.
If your anointing does not work outside of the pulpit, then it's artificial when you're in the pulpit.
That's right.
So we've got to get the salt of the earth to where the salt needs to be, and
Right.
and do it in love. This is about love.
It has to be in love. It has to be in love. And we have to break this mindset of our young men that think that you have to be hard, you have to be tough, you have to be rough. We have to break that mindset and that mentality. And until that's done, we're going to keep having situations like this.
They have to go. The kids need to be taught the word, the will. You must be under God's will. You can't.
Yes.
You cannot not be under His will.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're not under His will, you're under whose will?
Yeah, Satan's.
It's one or the
You're
other.
under Satan's will.
Yeah,
It's one or the other.
yeah.
When you're under God's will, you have all the protection in the world.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be under His will. You got to live the way Christ wants you to live. You got to love. If you don't have no love in you, you're going to hate.
Right.
And why hate when there's all this hate in the world and people doing all these evil things to each other? And, you know, when my son died, the kids of the neighborhood was angry. They were real angry. And I looked at them and I said, no.
Yeah.
Why would y'all want to go kill and you just seen a brother die?
Yeah.
That's my son.
Yes.
You know, don't go kill. Don't go looking for the killer. Y'all have to understand, God knows who it is. He know how to find them better than we do.
Right.
Yes.
Just like He created us, He created him too.
That's right.
We don't need, we do not need to go looking for nobody.
That was a courageous stand that you took. In fact, at the prayer vigil that night, you made it very clear. In fact, and Wilbur's dad made it very clear, and Mad made it very clear, that while you want to be angry and could be angry, that's not God's way.
No.
Right.
That's not God's way. And if a mother
Can say that
can
in the
say
midst
that
of
in
her
the
child's
midst
death.
of a child's death, that's the power of the love of God in the heart of a person.
Right.
It's that power that can change things.
Absolutely.
The power is in love. Dr. King talked about that, the strength of love.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we have forgotten who we really are.
Mm-hmm.
And we have an identity issue, and your destiny is tied to your identity. And so you've got to come back to who you really are. You're made in the image and likeness of God.
That's right.
Right.
And when you are like God, then you are at your very best,
Yeah.
and not at your worst. I think that what we need today is a love movement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need a
Yeah.
love movement, and we've got to come out of our own comfort zones, and come back to our family.
I left the house today coming here,
Yes.
and I left a house full of little boys on my porch that I minister to all the time. And they patted me on my back and say, "Be good, Mama."
Wow. The neighborhood
And they
love.
know, that's right. They know, you know, they respect me, but they love me.
And that's what we don't have enough of anymore.
Respect.
Respect.
And
But the neighborhood mother,
the,
I mean.
I have to lay a foundation
Yeah,
for them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just like I would lay
Yeah.
one for my children,
Yes.
that same foundation I'm going to lay for them.
yeah.
You got parents in the neighborhood that I wish they would like me, but I took that role to be what I needed to be in their life to prevent this to happen.
Yeah.
You have to think about it like this. Something was missing. Something is missing in the heart and mind of the people who did this.
Yes, yes,
You see,
yes.
You gotta go.
Yes.
Something is missing.
That's right.
In the heart and the mind of a person who will shoot a person over a
Yes.
basketball game.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Who will shoot a young man who's jogging down the street because they're bored.
That's right.
Like it happened in Duncan, Oklahoma.
Right. Mhm.
Something is missing in the person. And adults are responsible for what's missing in these kids.
That's right.
And it's
That's
funny
right.
that you say that because
That's
I
right.
oftentimes say that kids don't create problems for kids, but oftentimes problems with and for kids they start in the home.
That's right.
Yes.
With the adults and who they might consider to be a role model.
That's right.
in their lives.
Sure.
Everything starts at home. The home is the foundation.
Mhm.
Absolutely is.
That is built and instilled in these kids. So when they go out into society, what they see in the home is reflected in how
That's
they
right.
behave.
The
That's
value
right.
system is there.
The value
That's
system is certainly there, and it's missing.
That's
The
what's
value
missing.
It is.
system is missing
And
in the
they-
homes.
And
of
they
these
look
kids.
for that.
They
So,
look
so
for
how
us.
do we fix that? You know, we're going to continue this conversation in just a moment when we come back, because this is getting good. When we come back in just a moment with more of Let's Talk About It. All right, you guys stick around. We'll be back in just a moment with more of Let's Talk About It. Hello and welcome back to this edition of Let's Talk About It, where we have the mother of Wilbur, who was just recently murdered September the 5th. And also we have Bishop, actually James Dixon, who officiated that funeral service. I want to welcome you guys back to the show. Before we left off, we were talking about solutions
Yes.
to these types of crimes and activities happening in our community. And so what are some of the solutions to this type of thing taking place in our communities?
Well, before I speak about what we have to do outside, I think it's important that we identify the mothers like Miss Nettie.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm already creating a class for her to teach to the young mothers.
Oh, great, great.
You see, because we've got to get those who have it
Yes.
talking to those who need it.
Mm-hmm.
Think about all those young ladies who came down the aisle at the surface,
Right.
who have babies, small kids, or will be having them.
Mm-hmm.
Who's teaching them
Right.
how to raise a child?
Right.
Where do you learn how to do that? Where do you learn how to become the neighborhood mother? Where do you learn how to cook for multiple kids? Where do you learn how to do more than stopping at a Jack in the Box and getting a taco? How do you learn how to raise a son who will speak to you every morning, who will kiss you before he leaves? That's a skill. That's a gift.
Yes.
And you only catch that. And I heard a sister say she got that from her mom.
Right.
So if you don't have a mother with that, where do you get it from?
Right.
So we have to create new paradigms where we have mothers and dads teaching in small groups young men, young women, young ladies, girls, how to do that. I think that's extremely important. I think for me, the paradigm of the church has to change. Sunday school can't be Sunday school as usual. You know, you just, it ain't working.
Right.
We got to get real and start addressing real issues. This is the #1 issue in our community nationwide.
Right.
This is an epidemic. We are declining. We're having fewer babies, fewer marriages, faster deaths.
Yeah,
We are a deteriorating people.
that's right.
We are a deteriorate. 30 years from now, we will not be a people.
If we keep on like this.
If we continue this, we're at an epidemic level. So we've got to make it a national crisis. And I think the thing that we were saying is that, okay, you got all these homes where you have absentee parents, and so we can't keep saying, you got to fix the home.
Right.
How many more kids will we lose before we can fix the home?
Yeah.
You know, like the teachers at school said, well, I can't solve it because the problem is they come from home like that. Well, we've got to figure out what to do when we get them.
Right.
And my thing is, I'm responsible for the kid when I get it. I don't care what happened at home, what did not happen at home. I'm responsible
On your watch.
on my watch. So I think that, first of all, if we get those of us who have something to offer, we're not perfect ourselves.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
But have something to offer. If we can start loving our kids, we're starting something in Spring High School right now, where every month we're going to have a role model day.
Okay.
And we'll have hundreds of parents, business people, ministers on school campuses that day, meeting the kids, talking to the kids, loving on the kids. And then we're
Right.
starting small group mentorships for students, blocks of students on the campus.
That's excellent.
Because we've got to
That's
start having communication and conversation. I think that it's in our touch, it's in our contact. You can't do it disconnected. You have to touch the
Absolutely.
person in order
Absolutely.
to help and serve that. So I think that's where you start breaking it down. The relationships have to be built before we can become resourceful and relevant to each other.
Absolutely. And you know what I'm hearing and what I'm recognizing with this is that the church has to come outside of the church
Yes.
in order for this to happen.
Right.
The church can't stay, like you said earlier, can't stay within the walls of the church and make these things happen.
That's
But you have to
right.
go out there and have your voice heard. You have to go out there and speak these positive things to these kids, because a lot of the kids don't come to school with somebody that's positive.
That's
They don't
right.
come to school being nurtured the way that you guys could possibly nurture them. You know, and so often when it comes to the school system, when we're talking about the school system, I've actually heard parents that tell teachers between the hours of 8 and 3 o'clock, he's your responsibility.
Yes, I've heard that too.
How can a parent tell a teacher? I know back when I was growing up, if we did anything
Yes.
that where my parents got a report that I talked in class, simple stuff to back then,
Yes.
I'm gonna get a beating when I
Yeah,
get home,
yeah.
and you know, and I think a lot of parents today are even scared to whoop their kids. You know, and you have kids calling up CPS saying, my parents beat me. The parents are fearful of their kids. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna beat your butt
Yeah.
if you do something that's out of order or out of line. And we got to get back to that.
Yes.
But
yes.
we can't walk around in fear. And like we know, the word, God says the fear is not of the Lord.
Yeah.
And spare the rod, you spoil the child. And you know, you train them up in the way that you want them to go.
Yeah.
So when you talked about, even when we're talking about Wilbur, you're talking about your son, things you instilled in him, he was able to carry out things because of what? What you instilled in
That's
him.
right, what I taught him.
What you sent him out into the world with. What you
All of
equipped
my
him with.
kids knew that I was not coming to the schoolhouse for a discipline problem.
Mm-hmm.
I did not. I'm telling you, I had instilled that in them, and I was not coming to the school for a discipline problem. When the teacher said do something one time,
Yeah.
it was that one time.
That's
only.
enough.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. What type of advice would you give to a single mom, a single mother who's raising her children and putting them out into the world? Just like what you've been a role model in your neighborhood. What type of advice would you give to another young lady that's coming
Share
behind
with
you?
them what you shared with me. 'Cause she answered this question before we came on.
Is that right?
Yes. You said you did, what was your life for your kids? You put your life.
I stopped my life. I put my life on hold to raise my children. There was nothing I would do for myself. I actually put my life on hold to raise them, to make sure they had what they needed. I worked. I went to school for beauty school. I did a whole lot of stuff while they were at school. I did things while they were there, but when they came home, my life was on hold.
Mm-hmm.
It was none of that doing the things that I like to do.
Talk.
I stopped doing what I had to do because I had babies.
Mm-hmm.
When my children grew up, I instilled everything in them. I took them to church. You know, they was in Bible school. I did things with them. Being a single parent is hard. But if you stay focused and you read the word all the time, that'll keep you on the right path. It'll teach you how to raise your children. I stayed in the word.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, a lot of kids come to me and ask me what these words mean when they read. You have to keep reading. You just can't read it and get discouraged and put it down because it don't sound right to you.
Right.
You have to keep picking it up.
My God.
You have to keep picking it up. I don't care how hard it get. I don't care what it sound like. Keep picking. I teach these kids now, when you want to know what God is saying to you and it don't sound right, God say he'll give you what you need to hear him. You cannot get discouraged because you don't understand. I had a lot of kids to come and ask me what this means. When I pick up the word, it's not explaining anything to me. And I would sit out and minister to them.
Wow.
Don't never put that Bible down. Never put it down, because that's your life.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is.
That is your life.
And you know, one of the things that I see with young mothers today, they don't put their kids first.
No, they
They
don't.
actually
You
live their
got to
own lives
put-
as if they
That's right.
as if they never had a kid.
That's right.
They still
That's
want
right.
to go to the club. They still want to do this. They still want to do that.
That's
It's
right.
like that child is pushed back.
That's right.
And when that child is pushed back, they come out of sight, and you don't see that child. And because you don't see that child, the vision for that child
Yes.
is lost.
Yes. Yes.
And so the child has to stay in the forefront.
Mm-hmm.
We have to do that. If we're going to raise
That's
kids
it.
the way that we're talking about,
Yes.
so that we can help prevent the crimes and the things that's happening in our society on a daily basis, we have to stay active in that kid's life. We can't shun that responsibility and say, Mama, I need you to keep the kid today. I need you to keep that kid is your responsibility.
That's right.
And
That's
until
right.
you take that responsibility, a lot of things that's happening in society are going to continue to happen.
That's right. That's right.
They are not being raised. They're left to raise themselves because so often kids are seen as an interference,
Yes. Yes.
as an interruption. You're
said it.
in my way. And so parents are trying to figure out how to move the problem, how to keep you in a, and that is the mindset that's contrary and opposite to what Ms. Nettie is talking about.
Mhm.
I'm glad she said it. She put her life on hold Once you have a child, the child becomes the priority.
You are no longer
You're no longer the priority. Life is not about pleasure, it's about priority.
That's right.
And that's the significant difference that we see, and we see it over and over and over again. But we've got to reteach that value. And I'm so glad that she said that's why we've got to have her in front of mothers and potential mothers.
Absolutely.
So listen, before you go have a baby, understand what it's going to mean. It's not the babysitter's job, it's not the school's job. You are responsible for your kid until that kid becomes an adult, and that adult becomes responsible for himself. And then here's the piece. I get to do this for my kids, not I have to do it for my kids.
There you go. It's the attitude that
The
you have
attitude that
toward
you have.
your responsibility.
I
Yeah, you
get
have
to
some
do
of
it.
these girls, they grow up because the parents done them like that.
Yes, yes.
So you got to go back to where they came from and why
The foundation
they're
of
like
it.
that.
Mhm.
Yes.
You got to come in with a mindset, the way they're thinking, in order to bring them out of it.
Yes.
You have to. It's not a thing that you can just walk into and say, "Do this."
No.
Right.
They have to be trained into
Have to be
it.
trained.
They were brought into it the way their parents
The wrong
taught
way,
them. Yeah.
right.
They seen all of this stuff that the other parents were doing,
Mm-hmm.
so that it reflected on their life.
Yeah.
And that's all
So
they
they
know.
feel- yeah.
That's what
That's all
they
they
know.
But it could be changed if somebody would get in their ear, talk to them, encourage them, and teach them the will.
Mhm.
The will of God.
Once you get under the will of God, there's nothing you can go wrong with life. You'll be able to walk through life and do what you have to do to raise your children.
And that's called responsibility.
That's what it's called.
Responsibility.
Being
You know,
responsible.
one of the things I notice, I see it often in communities, you see tons of churches
Yeah.
in poverty-stricken areas, and oftentimes when I see all the churches, I'm wondering, what is that church doing in the community to make a difference? You know, with the kids, with the families, with the hunger that happens. You know, what are these churches doing in those communities? Because you have tons of churches, but anything that's not growing, in my eyes,
It's dying.
is dying.
We have over 80,000 black churches in America. Over 80,000 that are counted.
Mm-hmm.
And yet our communities are deteriorating, dilapidated,
Mhm.
because even the churches are divided.
Yes. Yes.
You know, the churches are in competition. The
That's
churches
right.
are divided, they're isolated. And they're not focused on the mission.
Yeah.
And so I think that we have to be honest with ourselves
Yes.
about that. And it's just a critique. And I'm not saying our church is a perfect church. And I don't think any church is. But it's so important that we're honest about this.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you very honestly,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm transparent to a fault sometimes. We're out at the prayer vigil in the street, and there are 200 churches between
Yes.
Cross Timbers and 610
Yes, it is.
from Yale and Maine.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking where there was not another church. There was not. I'm saying, why? Who else? Did a pastor knock on the door? Did a deacon come by? Did a mission sister come from any church? You don't have to be
Right.
the church that you're a member of.
Mhm.
Just, we heard about your son. We heard about your family's crisis. We're here to pray with you, to serve. If the community saw that, if those kids in the streets
Mhm.
had seen that display of love, Jesus says this, by this all men would know that you are really my disciples if you have love one for another. Not by your choir robe, not by your uniform, not by the steeple or the size of the building.
Right.
It's how we love each other.
Absolutely.
And so we've got to love has to be in the equation. And that's what we're missing.
Yeah.
But I thank God for the opportunity to connect.
I did not know that pastor was coming to my house until he came. I welcomed him in, and I was so gracious to. I was pleased with him when he sat down and talked to me, because no one had came and he came, and I still right to this day trying to figure out how he found out, and he's on Paramount. All those churches in my neighborhood, Bishop came to me and talked to me. I was so overwhelmed with him coming down. I didn't know what to do. And when he started talking to me, all I could think about was but God.
But God.
But God. God sent him to me. I was confused, I was frustrated, I was mad, but God was talking to me. He talked to me, and he kept talking to me. And when Pastor Dixon walked through that door, and he sat down on the side of me, my spirit man just got at ease. I was so stirred up before he got there. I didn't know what to do. But when he talked to me, I calmed down. And I knew right then he was in the midst of what I was going through.
And you know, that's the importance of church.
Yeah.
You know, not sitting behind the four walls of the church, but actually going out into the community
That's
to
right.
make a difference, especially in the time of the sorrow of a mother having just lost her child.
Yeah.
You know, that says a lot about Bishop Dixon and his platform with his church and his congregation. I think it's a beautiful thing, and I
It
think that
is.
we need more pastors and bishops like Bishop Dixon. And I want to say this too, because oftentimes I think I've witnessed people that will do things for show.
Yes.
Or because there's a television camera involved.
Yes.
But what are you doing when that television camera is not involved?
That's right.
What are you doing when you're not in the spotlight? That determines who you really are. When you in the grudges of things, when you're going out into the community, you're taking a whole bunch of people and you're playing music, you're drawing kids to you, and you're giving a message. That's not for show. That's not for TV. That's not for the cameras. That's because you care about the community and your hand is on the pulse of the community and what's going on, and you actually want to make a difference. And that's awesome.
But I think, and this, to God be the glory. I want to first of all say,
Absolutely.
you know, to God be the glory. But it begins with how you see people. How do you see people without a job? How do you see people who just got out of jail? How do you see people who are not living in a two-story brick home with insurance and who can't pay the tithe? How do you see people in crisis? And Jesus says in Matthew 9, they're sheep. They're just missing a shepherd. And if you don't see them as sheep, then shepherds are not drawn to them. He said that's the harvest. What a beautiful description Jesus had of people in trouble. The harvest. A harvest is a beautiful thing. A harvest is an apple tree full of apples. It's an orange tree full of oranges. A harvest has value.
Right.
And anything that has value won't be overlooked. But we're overlooking the people because the view that we have of them is that they're not valuable.
Yes.
They don't have anything to offer. And the gifts that are in these young people are priceless. So it begins with how you see them. And real shepherds smell like sheep. If a shepherd doesn't have the scent of a sheep on him, then you have to question whether or not he's truly a shepherd.
Right.
And so where are the sheep are out in the streets. The sheep are, and they're calling out. I hear all this noise they're making, the cussing, the vulgarity, the profanity. I hear that as a crying out of lost sheep. It's not noise to me. It's not racket to me. It's not a turnoff to me.
It's a cry.
It's a cry.
for
It's a
help.
plea. I'm lost. I need a shepherd.
Yeah.
And we have too many of us not to be out there
That's
to
right.
solve this.
Bishop, I'm glad you're leading the forefront of that,
Oh, thank God.
to make a difference and to ignite change in the community. I think it's a beautiful thing, and I certainly commend you for your efforts, and it's a beautiful thing what you've done for Nettie and her family
Yes.
to make a difference at this very trying time in their lives. I wanted to ask you, how do the people get more information about you and the move that you're making? How can you be contacted?
Let me give you 2 websites.
Okay.
One is beyourbrother'skeeper.com, www.beyourbrother'skeeper.com. And of course, you can always go to our church website, and that's www.cofempowers.org, cofempowers.org. And if you don't get that, just remember my name, James Dixon. Go on Facebook, and I think we got about 5 Facebook pages, and so you can find it. And I would love for people to contact us, because this is a movement, and Miss Nettie and her family are part of this movement. If you want to help them, rather than just feeling sorry and having sympathy, come join the movement, because on October 26th, we're going to be in the same neighborhood, taking the power to the streets. And
Yes.
the power is what God has put in her, her family, and in us. That's where we're going with this.
That is fantastic. Thank you so much. Are there any final words that you'd like to say?
All my babies come see me.
Yeah.
I
And
love
thank you.
that.
Thank you so very much
Oh, absolutely.
for this
Thank you.
platform.
Oh, I thank God for
Thank
that.
you.
And that's my hope with this show, is to ignite change, to motivate, educate, and inspire people that watch it. And you guys have certainly done that today, and I really appreciate it. We're going to be back with our final segment of Let's Talk About It. So you guys want to stick around. We're going to be joined by the mother of Wilbert's young son and his girlfriend in just a moment. So please stick around. Thanks. Hello and welcome back to this edition of Let's Talk About It. In my last segment, I told you guys that we would have Ronnie Leday on. Ronnie is the girlfriend of Wilbert Muhammad Lee Jr. Ronnie, I know that you've had some challenging times over the last few days, having lost your boyfriend and the father of your young son, Jaden. I just want to ask you, what has that experience been like for you as a young mother and losing the father of your child?
I want to start by saying this was my first experience with death, period, with someone being close to me.
Yes.
So that was hard in itself. And by it being my best friend, more than anything, someone that you spent every day with, it's been very trying, very hard. Just nothing I had ever imagined.
Yeah.
It's a pain that I've never felt before,
Right.
honestly.
Yeah. I can only imagine what it's like, because when something like this happens, of course we have plans for our life, and this is something that we don't just plan for.
Right.
It just happens, and we're just forced to handle it. We're forced to deal with it. We're forced to face obstacles and find solutions on how do I move forward from here. Now, I know you're raising a young son, Jaden. How do you explain Wilbert's death to young Jaden?
I had to be very, very strong. So I had to take time, and I had to cry it all out first before I could even look at him to even think of the words to say. I had to pray
Right.
about it and ask God to give me the wisdom and for him to guide the words out of my mouth, not me. You know, I never knew what to say to a 5-year-old that he would understand.
Right.
But I sat him down, I talked to him, I told him, and I didn't show him anything negative or any sad emotions. So as of now, he's taken it very well. He just feels like Dad's in heaven with God, and that's the way it is, and that's the way it's supposed to be.
Right.
So as of now, I haven't gotten any negative emotion nor sad emotion from him as of yet.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Wow. You know, I wanted to also ask you, because it's something that I've heard repetitively as it relates to Will and being the father that he's been to Jaden. Tell me a little bit about what it's been like for you, seeing how he interacted with y'all's son.
I was a little jealous. It made me upset. It made me feel some kind of way from time to time. They were best friends. Like,
Yeah.
it was a bond between a father and son that I've never seen before, even in fathers that are in the household every day with a child. Adults strive to have that kind of relationship with their child
Yeah.
that they had. I mean, that was his favorite person in the whole world. Everyone could see it. Teachers at school, teachers at church, everybody. Any people that didn't even know his dad, just the way that he would talk highly of him, you would think he was the best person in the world
Right.
to him. It was beautiful,
Yeah.
undeniable.
Right, right. And I think that's so I think it's wonderful that you can talk about an African-American man who was a stand-up dad, who looked after his kid, who took on the responsibility of his kid, who spent time with his kid to help mold his life, his future, and his well-being. And he was present. He was there. He wasn't deadbeat. He wasn't absent. He was there. And unfortunately, because of senseless crimes like gun violence and ignorance, his life was snuffed out. Like I said earlier, because he has passed, because it was senseless, because it was by a gunshot, someone has lost a father, someone has lost a brother, someone has lost an uncle, someone has lost a boyfriend and a dad to their child. A mother has lost her son because of ignorance and stupidity and senseless murder. It's so unfortunate, and people, I can't say it enough. We have to stop. We have to stop. I'm excited about the move that's taken place with Bishop Dixon going out into the community to make a difference, in hopes that these types of things will not continue to happen in our communities and the world at large. Ronnie, I wanted to ask you, what difference would you want to see that takes place because of what's happened with Will passing?
I definitely do not want his death to be in vain. I would love for people to learn from it, grow from it. For me, it's been a clean slate. I think you should start over. You should remember this event, and you should make a conscious effort to live your life correctly by the Word of God. Love one another. He loved everybody. It was very clear and apparent that he loved everybody. So even if it changes one life or two lives, I would say it's worth it.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm going to go back a little bit to Saturday. I can't help but to go back to Saturday because Saturday just, again, resonated in my mind when I witnessed the amount of people and the number of people that came forward to give their life to Christ, all in the midst of Will's passing and actually during his service. The number of people that were there was a testament of the kind of person that he had to have been that showed up. So it said a lot about him to have that number of people present in his life. And when I listened to his mom speak, in the midst of losing her son, his mom spoke about God's power and what God was doing in the midst of her son's death, that her son's death was not in vain. And that's the message that I want everybody to get when they see this show. The passing of Wilbur Muhammad Jr. was not in vain. And I hope I got that name correctly. If I didn't, we'll make sure we correct it on the screen. But the importance is that his life and his death was not in vain. What are some of the fond memories that you had, Ronnie, of Wilbur?
Where you want me to start? It was never a dull moment. We always had fun. Like I said, we were best friends, so we did everything from video games to boat rides to grocery store. We would run around the grocery store and scavenger hunts. We would get pedicures together. I know he would kill me if he knew I said that. We would even bond by him doing my hair. I mean, it was whatever I asked of him. If it made me happy, he was willing to do it. We had fun. He always had an upbeat spirit and attitude. It was just never a dull moment. We always had fun. We were always laughing, dancing, playing, being goofy.
Right.
Just never a dull moment. We always had fun. Always.
Wow. And to think that all of that was snuffed out over violence, ignorance, stupidity, lack of humankind, lack of consciousness, on the part of our African American brothers that are going out and senselessly doing these things. I can't say it enough, folks. It's got to stop. But I think that today's show is going to be the start of something big that's going to make the difference in the lives of others when people get the opportunity to see this segment and to see this show. We've heard from Will's mother, from Will's girlfriend, his dad, Bishop Dixon, his aunt, his brother, and people that loved Will, that are pushing forward to see that his death was not in vain. Ronnie, I want to thank you so much for taking time out to come on the show. I know this wasn't the easiest thing in the world for you to do, but because you stepped out and you said the things you said, I think it's going to make a difference in the lives of others. And I wanted to ask you, what type of advice would you be able to give now that you're a single mom having to raise your child because of a senseless crime? What would you say to people that are out there committing those crimes right now?
Honestly, the only thing I can say is just put yourself in my shoes. And what if you were the one raising a 5-year-old without a father? What would you say to him? What answers would you give to his questions about why he doesn't have a father? I mean, we just have to seek God and He'll work it out for us. But I do hope that this helps somebody and changes somebody's view so that they will not commit a crime to have another child without a father.
Absolutely. I just want to thank you so much for joining me on this segment of Let's Talk About It. And I thank you guys certainly for joining us. For more information on the show, Let's Talk About It, you can certainly reach us at Let's Talk About It 12TV at gmail.com. That's Let's Talk About It 12TV at gmail.com. Until next time, we'll see you then.